Live streaming is on.
And maybe we're black. Oh, there we go. Okay, we're on now. Now we're on.
Hello.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us or watching us later, which is probably more likely because we didn't tell anybody we were going to be doing this. I am Drew Bingaman. I am the PA captain of the Pennsylvania Pirate PA captain. I'm the captain of the Pennsylvania Pirate Party. Johnny, I'll kick it over to you.
Hi, I'm John Robinson. I am the secretary of the Pirate Party of Pennsylvania.
And of course, AJ.
I am Anthony J. I am the chair of the Pirate National Committee.
Well, thank you guys for joining me, and anybody else that's out there watching this at 10 o'clock at night on a Wednesday. We published a streaming list, mostly on Amazon and Netflix. There's a couple others that I recommend. This is mostly out of my brain of things that I've watched, or I actually want to watch that I need to get to, that I think go very well with a lot of piratey type politics. And I'm going to start with the this Amazon list here, and with The Flaw. The Flaw is mostly about the 2008 financial crash. It has a lot of it comes from a line from Alan Greenspan, who said under oath at Congress that he found a flaw in one of his philosophies, or his, not so much his math, but his flaw. He doesn't want, because you can't have flawed math. But it goes on about how things were ignored, and is pretty good. So if you're into the 2008 financial crash, there are several things on this list that will be good for you. The next one is Citizen 4, which, if you haven't seen it, this is the documentary of Edward Snowden in Hong Kong, I believe. It is him giving his information to Glenn Greenwald and how they came out to the press. Has a lot of the whole story of, what the government was doing and probably is still doing, despite the fact that now we all know what they were doing. And then how, they kind of tried to keep Snowden out of hot water. Later on down the list is the Snowden movie, which is under rent or buy on Amazon. But that's the more of the dramatized version. The Citizen 4 is the actual documentary of Snowden coming out. My number 3 is Cryptopia, and I need to bring that back up because I watched this the other day, and it's a lot about cryptocurrency. And it's a pretty new one. It's from 2021, so there's a lot of stuff in there about the ups and downs and the crashes and the squirrely stuff.
Yeah, I haven't even heard of this. I mean, so tell me more about it. I mean, naturally, you said that it covers the nuances of it all, but
it does. It covers a lot of the stuff. It doesn't necessarily. I don't think it gets into NFTs much, but it's very much. There are definitely doubters and proponents in this.
Okay.
It's pretty balanced. It kind of starts from the beginning and kind of explains cryptocurrency. So if you don't really know what cryptocurrency is, this is something that can kind of give you also a primer on that. There's it goes into pluses and minuses. Talks about some of the major players. Some of those major players actually are in the documentary. I thought it was a pretty good, well balanced documentary on crypto. And
when did this come out again?
It says it's from 2021. So
okay. Oh, so this is really recent.
Yeah, it's pretty recent. It's about as recent as many of these get. So it's another one I highly recommend. Take your time and watch it. Number 4 is probably one of my favorites, especially for piratey type stuff here. It's called The Creepy Line. And that comes from a line from a Google exec at one point that says, "We want to come right up to the creepy line, but not cross it." This is also after they got rid of their "Don't be evil" thing.
Yeah,
it does. It's basically a documentary on how Facebook and Google have really kind of taken over the internet. They talking about like some of the algorithms that they use, how much they're spying on you, how you're the product because they don't charge you for things. It's a very good. It's an eye opener if you have no idea that this stuff is going on.
And we're going to get into this with a few entries later, but I just want to say one of my big interests when it comes to these sorts of documentaries are the ones that dig into things like public opinion, how it's swayed, how people can sway it, because I think that that's some really important things that that people need to know about, right? I wish I can't remember. There's a documentary that I haven't seen this one either, but I'm assuming it's probably somewhat similar to this. It's DW put it out, which is like a kind of like the German version of PBS. It's in English, naturally.
Okay.
I will actually have to get a link to that to see if we can add it to this list. The name of it is escaping me right now. Sorry, I'm just adding a new entry. But the interesting thing about this one is that, like, DW themselves took it down off of YouTube, and I haven't been able to find out why. But it's really good if you want to know about how social media influences public opinion.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, there is definitely several of these things as it kind of goes in that whole thing. Now, we did briefly talk about Snowden, which is number 5 on my Amazon list. By the way, these numbers are just how I wrote them out of my head mostly, in no particular order. These next couple kind of go with the number 1, which was The Flaw, the Too Big to Fail, The Big Short, Inside Job, The Men Who Stole the World, Banksters. They all pretty much more or less have to do with big financial issues and a lot to do with the 2008 financial crisis, which was a big mess, which and we're still dealing with fallout here.
And these are all, at least the ones that I've seen and know about from this selection. I mean, you really can't go wrong if you pick any of these if you want to learn about the 2008 financial crisis. I do I think it's The Big Short's in that category, right? I'm trying to remember.
The Big Short is in that list. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the one that I really, really liked. I'm having trouble recalling, but
that one either won an Oscar or was nominated for a bunch of them. I mean, I remember that's actually how I found out about that movie was just Oscar buzz.
There's
yeah,
another movie that came out a little bit before that. It was sort of a smaller one, and it was less about the machinations that caused the financial crisis, but more about one firm and how they dealt with it, called Margin Call.
Okay.
It had Zachary Quinto and the guy from Kaiser Soze in The Usual Suspects.
Oh, Ed. Wow, I'm doing bad. House of Cards.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
I know he's a bit verboten right now, but he was very good in that.
Yeah. Good actor, bad guy.
Yes.
Right.
So,
Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a very good film as a character study sort of thing about the brokers and what they had to deal with and what they had to go through when everything started melting down.
Right. Yeah. That's a drama. That's a drama. Obviously, with those actors, that's a dramatization,
Yes.
sort of like The Big Short was. Yeah. So that just to be clear, not everything on this list is a, like Snowden versus Citizen 4. Citizen 4 is a documentary, where Snowden is the dramatization. The Big Short is a dramatization. Margin Call, like you just talked about, is a dramatization.
It was actually more. I mean, it wasn't based on any specific firm or anything. It's more of a dramatization of what might happen at any typical firm. Sort of.
Right. I gotcha. So, and then the last one on my Amazon list here is called Big Money Agenda: Democracy on the Brink. And that basically is just a telling of how big money influences laws and lawmakers, and how things really work in the United States. And most of us know how disgusting that is, but not everybody does. And it's these sort of things are pretty eye-opening to people that know, they know, like, everybody knows, like, big money's a thing. But when you actually can see to what extent, and to see how extreme some of these examples are, things that should not be, things that really shouldn't be politicized, that are, because there's some big money behind it. I mean, it's just disgusting. So one of the probably the two most piratey things on here are in the other streaming recommendations. The first one is called Steal This Film, and you can find it on the Tubi free streaming service. That there's an app just called Tubi, Tubi. It follows the guys that formed the original Pirate Bay website in Sweden, and it's kind of their story and how they fought to keep it open, and how they fought when, basically they weren't really doing anything illegal at the time, but over time the response to them and their sharing of movies, basically, how they kind of got in trouble. And it leaves us at the end with they're still fighting. Kim.com, and if anybody knows who Kim.com was, he was Mr. Mega Upload. He kind of came after the Pirate Bay as a response, as a replacement, more or less. And it's more or less his story. It's a lot of, this is probably less political than Steal This Film. This is more, I would say, a little bit more on the sensational side of how they raided his house at the end, and how much of an overuse of force there was when the I think it was a combination of the FBI, and I think he was in New Zealand at the time.
Yes.
So it was a combination of the FBI and the local New Zealand authorities and how it was probably actually an illegal raid on his house because they didn't have the proper I's dotted and T's crossed to actually perform that operation when it happened. But it's his story. It's his story and the story of Mega Upload, which is very similar to the story of Pirate Bay and how, there were highs. The highs were high for Kim.com because he was loaded at one point. Mm-hmm. And then him coming crashing down when the authorities cracked down on it. So those two, definitely put those on your list. They're both on free streaming services. Tubi for Steal This Film, and Crackle, which is Sony's free streaming service, has Kim.com. So yeah, if you watch nothing else on this, just watch those two and just see how ridiculous the copyright industry will go to push law enforcement to shut these things down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So moving on to the Netflix list. A lot of these Netflix shows are actually Netflix originals. So the Amazon ones, not so much, and Steal This Film and Kim.com, definitely not. They're not originals from that streaming service. So you can find these other places. And I'm certainly not telling you have to go to Amazon to find these things. I'm just telling you that that's where you can find them. And I certainly don't care if you get them in a less.
There are different ways you can find them.
Yeah,
you can find them in multiple ways.
Yeah. So now, again, that doesn't necessarily apply. I mean, it may apply because I have Netflix, so I don't care about trying to find Netflix originals elsewhere. So if there are Netflix originals elsewhere to be found, and that works for you,
I think they get the point.
Yeah. So that's my disclaimer is we're telling you where you can find them easily, and if you find them elsewhere, good for you. So I have as number one on my list here is The Great Hack on Amazon, or not on Amazon. Oh, geez. Now I'm all Netflix. We're on Netflix now. Yeah. Netflix. And The Great Hack. This was one of those ones that yeah. Here we go. Why am I not? Aha. This one's about Cambridge Analytica.
Okay.
Yeah, this is why I needed to pull up the because I couldn't. I knew I wasn't going to remember Cambridge Analytica. And how they did a lot of influence during 2016, and how they used their algorithms and targeting and all that stuff to influence the election, and
not just our election.
That's true. It wasn't just our election; it was other elections, and it does go into that. But yeah, it's pretty. This one's where so with the creepy line on Amazon, that gets into how Google and Facebook are kind of like actively, showing us the reality that they think that we want to see, and how they're reacting to our needs or our wants, things like that. Things that we do, where this is more of an active, this is what we want to show you, and this is how we're going to influence you in a way that to do the things that we want you to do, to go in the way that we want you to go. Right. So this would be a past the creepy line, definitely. So yeah, this one is highly on my list. This one does say it's a Netflix original. and so is the next one, the Social Dilemma. It is it's mostly about social networking, and how it's really not good for anybody.
We make content to put onto our various Facebook and Twitter,
right? Yeah,
blog posts.
As we're creating content for our our various social media. But yeah, again, this goes into sort of like the creepy line where it gets into, telling you the getting into the tracking of the social media, what they're, how they're selling you, and things that happen, that are in, how social media is just, it could be better. How it could be better. But yeah, that one's a good one. Number 3 that I have on here is the Netflix series, How to Become a Tyrant.
Oh boy, this is my favorite one on this list.
Yeah,
from what I've seen one yet, but it looks interesting.
Yeah, it's basically the entire playbook. Like it goes into.
Is it a red flag? That's the only one I've said this looks interesting. I think I need to watch this one.
Yeah, yeah.
If it's a red flag,
it's a red flag
to the soccer field of red flags that I have.
Yeah, it starts off with a red flag. Let's see. There are 6 episodes. The first episode, it says, ruling with an iron fist requires an aspiring dictator to know the playbook for absolute power, as history's despots prove in this sardonic docuseries. It's basically showing you in different episodes how many of the different iconic dictators of the 20th century, how they either gained, maintained power. It's made themselves icons. It starts with episode 1 is seize power. Here's how you actually take power.
And I do want to notice that these, if I can remember the structure right, they usually try and focus on one prime example and sort of branch out. So for this one, Seize Power, it's all about how Hitler and the Nazis did it. It goes into, the way they used propaganda and things like that, which is, very interesting to me. Like I said, I'm fascinated by that sort of thing because, I'm a PR guy. I'm in communications, so there's some kind of, it's like, it's just sort of my interest. I find it really fascinating to see the way bad people have taken neutral concepts and used them and turned them into machines by which to just make the populace do whatever they want. It's super, super fascinating. If you like any of that stuff, you should watch this series especially.
See, for me, I watched it, the same way that I read 1984, to be a sign of here's what to watch for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's when these things start happening, it's really bad, and you either need to get the hell out of Dodge, or you need to join the opposition, or just shut up and knuckle under if you're that kind of person. I guess it's but it's a red flag. There's a red flag on the front of the series because every one of these things is a red flag, not necessarily because the communist flag was red, but it's very, very eye-opening. If it's, again, there's one of those things that there's a lot of people that understand how these things happen, but when you lay it out in such a way like this, people just you can open people's eyes can be opened to some of the stuff. And I also can find some definite contemporary lines of symmetry between some of these things and what's been happening in and around the United States. So,
Yeah. Well, you can, I think a lot of people are familiar with the playbook in a abstract sense, but to actually see it laid out for you step by step is very different, because you can have, these, like I said, these abstract ideals about, oh, here's how they did this and here's how they did this, and this is why this is bad. But until you sit down and you watch or you read, just consume something like this that really does it step by step, I don't think you really understand the whole, frog in boiling water effect and how it actually happens. And I do think this series is very good at that, because it takes you, all the way from how it starts to how it perpetuates for decades. Like, the last example they give is North Korea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it goes into the basically ruling forever, so that you basically make yourself a god, more or less, in the eyes of the people, and so that you become worshipped, and that's sort of the playbook that the North Korean leadership has taken, that they're very special. They're not just people. They're very special.
They don't poop, apparently.
Apparently not. I am highly skeptical of that.
Of course you do. How do you think all the world's fields are fertilized? It just takes one poop from the leader, and that takes care of it.
One poop. That's how their kimchi gets so good.
Exactly.
So my next on the Netflix list. This one I had no idea about. Like this one I had no idea that stuff like this went on. It's called Coded Bias. It is from 2020. It starts with an MIT Media Lab researcher who's trying to build a facial recognition. I think she said it was a mirror app or something like that. But she found out, because she was black and a woman, that the open source facial recognition software that she was trying to use, which is super widely used, didn't recognize her. It would not recognize her face. And it starts off with facial recognition technology, but it goes into much more other AI and algorithms that are created, and how there is just straight up built-in bias in these algorithms against people of color. It basically, most of them are only made for white men. Like that's and if you're not a white man and you get in and you hit one of these algorithms, that you'll be discriminated against, basically. And it shows like there's things like algorithms based on like selecting applications and resumes, and how there's these automated things that are they just blanket reject things. Like if you have a woman, like I think that one of them was, if you had a women's college listed, a traditionally women's college listed on your resume, that there were certain algorithms that would just blanket reject it. Like
this is like a lot more people do. I think this is an especially really good one to watch, and just in general, this is a topic that I really think people need to learn more about, because you will bring up, or anyone will bring up, the fact that this happens, and a lot of the response you'll get is like scoffing, like, how can algorithms be racist? That's silly. That doesn't make any sense, or sexist, or what have you. Mm-hmm. But until you really understand how algorithms are trained on data sets, and how, depending on how that goes, I think with facial recognition, a big one is, it just won't account for any features that are, within the minority, because in order to really do that well, the data sets have to actually be, weighted so they actually recognize any sort of, minority features, whether that be darker skin or what have you. So it's really important to understand this stuff, because a lot of people kind of, they walk like top of the Dunning-Kruger
It
effect. They're like,
affects
they think they're
everybody.
super, super smart because they do not understand how algorithms can
Yeah.
actually discriminate against people.
And that's the thing. And if while watching this film, you realize that there is no way to not be affected by these, because these are now so ingrained. Now it isn't. Now we're not. We say AI and we say these algorithms. It is artificial intelligence in that it is automated. It does its own thing and is almost never questioned. Right. So these companies implement these things that the writers of, they have things that, basically they have quote unquote proof that says these work. And so there's no more questioning that goes into these algorithms. But then it turns out, because of, at some point things come to light, that they don't work the way that they're supposed to, or that they're extremely discriminatory. And that is one of the reasons why the thing that goes along with this film is the woman who is sort of our main character in this documentary, the woman from MIT, who kind of went down the whole rabbit hole here. She started what's called the Algorithmic Justice League. And I highly recommend anybody going and liking their Facebook page. We've liked it as the Pennsylvania Pirate Party. It's just ajl.org is their website. You can go to their website and, just sign up for email newsletters, because they are actively working. She has testified in Congress. They are a one. This is a one issue group that I think we really need to support, because this stuff needs to be fixed. And yes, I'm a white male, and so most of these things aren't actually discriminating against me, but I am not, the kind of person that thinks that's okay.
Right.
So yeah, check out ajl.org, the Algorithmic Justice League. And if you are so inclined, send them a donation and watch this film, because, start off by watching the film. You will be outraged. I guarantee you will be outraged, and you will have, we've given a bit of a rundown here, but this is one of those ones, and there's more coming later that are just absolutely infuriating. The next couple here are all series. The first one is in a little bit of a different category. Uh-oh, did we lose AJ? I think we lost AJ.
Yes, we did. Yes.
Okay.
He'll be back.
Yeah, he'll be back. I'm gonna pull up my list on this one, because I need a little bit of help with this one, because it's each one of these episodes on this series are different. So the show, the series is called Web of Make-Believe: Death Lies in the Internet.
Okay.
The first episode is about swatting. The second episode is called A Murder in DC. It's a murder of a political staffer in 2016 spawns a myriad of unfounded conspiracy theories as the man's family and the truth hang in the balance. The third episode is very interesting. It's called I'm Not a Nazi. This series just came out this year, so it's new. It recounts her journey as a mouthpiece for the white nationalist hate group. What is it? Is it the Christian Identity? They're one of the big ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. She got into this with a obvious, as a lot of women do, but with a boyfriend. And she became pretty big deal. and then it shows her going from, I think it goes to Charlottesville. She was still a supporter, and it kind of has her going through the whole, I can't believe I actually did this stuff at the end, and it's mostly a lot of her story, but there's more, there's more to it. But it kind of follows a lot of the modern white nationalist Christian identity. What's that dickhead's name that started a lot of that stuff? The guy that's Mr. Punch a Nazi.
Oh, not Stern.
No, the guy. Yeah, he is the one that was. He's always in a suit, and he's got
with the dumb haircut.
Yeah, with the
Hail
stupid
Victory, that guy.
Yeah, Hail Victory, Hail Trump, Hail Victory.
Right.
Yeah. And it does go into all that, and it's that one's, I think, probably my favorite episode in here. But the next couple, there's it's Sextortion, where a guy basically hacks he hacks a crap load. It ends up being like, I think it ends up being a teenager in this one town, where he hacks a bunch of people's I don't remember if it's iPhones or gets into their social media and finds some naughty pictures, and he starts basically extorting the whole like a whole bunch of people in this town. And it kind of follows the whole case. That's a pretty good from a here's how the internet, you can actually get yourself in trouble with the internet.
Right.
The last two episodes, 5 and 6, and you probably know what this is when I say this word, the Stingray.
Yes.
You know what a
Heard of
Stingray.
that.
So a Stingray is a law enforcement tool that it pretends to be a cell tower.
Right.
And law enforcement
also in the middle of cell phone conversation.
Yeah. So it becomes a man in the middle attack, basically. It pardon me. Because it pretends to be a cell tower, your phone just connects to it if it's closer. If your phone is closer to the Stingray than you are to the tower. So it then collects all of the data for law enforcement of everything that connects to it. So anything that passes through it is collected by law enforcement. And they're in pursuit of a hacker, and they use they get it down to a certain block or whatever to find this guy, and they end up using a Stingray, and that's the only way that they could have caught him is using the Stingray, and it goes into the legalities and how he actually got some of the evidence thrown out because the warrant to use the Stingray, it collected everybody's data, and they didn't have a warrant to collect everybody's data. They only had warrant to collect the suspect's data. And so some of it was thrown out, and these Stingrays were not supposed to even be made public. They're supposed to be secret, which obviously they haven't been secret for some time. Right. But and a lot of law enforcement agencies say that they don't have them, they don't use them, but the company that makes them has books that says that they've sold so many of these things. And it really, this is another one of those things, sort of like
one town buys a whole bunch of them. So the
Stingray, being a very controversial device, which apparently flashbangs and tear gas are starting to become that because they're killing people. It's just one of those things where they don't, nobody wants to let them know that they're, Hang on, I'm gonna send AJ a message real quick and see if he's don't know what happened. He just dropped off. Anyway, so yeah, the web of make believe lies death lies in the internet. A whole bunch of different topics, but really good stuff. I think that one is that. There's several of those episodes. You may not be into all of them, but several of those episodes are very good.
It sounds like them.
Yeah. These next 3 series, Dirty Money, Rotten, and Broken. They're all pretty much along the same lines. So Dirty Money is basically dirty money. Kind of, let's see. If I can get the stupid thing to come up. Oh, hey, look, and it's got my other one. Yeah. So Dirty Money is I think we've got 2 seasons of this now. Yeah, there's 11 episodes all together. Let me just put it to all of these here. So season 1 goes into the Volkswagen fraud. The clean their clean diesel. And
right.
They, you know, there's the second episode goes into payday lending scheme / empire that was built so this guy could go racing. Let's see, drug short. Let's see. So that's about drug maker Valiant. They go through some.
I know that name. I forget.
I forget exactly what their quote unquote crime was. I don't believe they were the ones that did the like 800% price increase. That was a different. I think that was a different group. The next one is Cartel Bank. That's talking about HSBC and its whole ties to the Mexican drug cartels. The next one is this one. This one's just interesting because it's not what you have. It's not anything you'd ever think of. It's called the Maple Syrup Heist.
And I have heard about this one. I have heard about this.
It talks about how there's big. It just goes into the whole maple syrup industry in Canada and how there was a whole bunch of fake maple syrup that is put out there. Stuff gets diluted. There is a legal cartel in Canada. And AJ, are you back with us?
Sorry about that. You have me back.
That's all right. We're talking about Dirty Money now.
Okay.
Series Dirty Money. Talking about the maple syrup heist. And this one was very interesting to me because I had no idea that this stuff went on in Canada. About how they have an actual legal cartel, a maple syrup cartel in I think it's Quebec. That runs the maple syrup and how there's all these underground maple syrup things that go on. It's just
it's crazy.
It is very crazy. It's very entertaining. It's like it's not one of these things that makes you like worried about the maple syrup that you buy at the store or anything, It's not like that, but it's just interesting and crazy about how serious people take their maple syrup. Then the last episode of the first season is The Confidence Man, which basically is Donald Trump and some of his shady bullshit. And, it goes into that. Season 2 starts off with the Wagon Wheel, which was Wells Fargo, and some of their bullshit that they pulled off to show growth where they actually had no growth. Basically defrauding, their customers and their shareholders.
We had fun coming up with the titles of these episodes, I think.
Yeah. the next one is The Man at the Top, which I don't remember if it was even that. I don't remember. I don't think this one was quite as interesting. This one has to do with the Prime Minister of Malaysia. He had a bunch of financial scandals going on. Next one, though, is a little more interesting. Slumlord Millionaire. Jared Kushner, his rise in real estate, and some of his bullshit that he pulled. Dirty Gold is showing how some of the illegally mined gold from South America, it was being bought up by legitimate companies, but they just weren't doing their due diligence to bring the gold in, and it was becoming large. All right, Kit Kat. It was becoming an issue with money laundering. It was basically it was the way that drug lords were using. They were sending this gold into the U.S. to become legit, and that one's very interesting. And this is another one that I had no idea that was the thing. These things were going on. And then the last episode is Point Comfort. It's a Texas town where a great big plastic plant came in and kind of wrecked their community with pollution and all that stuff. So yeah, Dirty Money, good series, a lot of good stuff there. Let's see, the next one that's sort of like that might not be next on my list, but it's next here in on the Netflix is Rotten. Now this one's all about different food and how messed up food is, like how let's see, Lawyers, Guns, and Honey, talking about honey, hive thefts, water stuff that's watered down and impure, sort of like the maple syrup stuff in the other show. The Peanut Problem, talking about different food allergies and garlic breath. How garlic has turned into a multi-million-dollar crop, but there's problems with everything. The next one's Big Bird. It's large chicken production. How they not exactly the best conditions that are used in large scale chicken production.
Right.
Another thing, the next one's Milk Money. It's all about the milk industry. Cod is Dead. It is about commercial fishing. Let's see here. What do we got? The Avocado War. That's all about how avocados and just the craziness that goes around some of these things. Reign of Terror is around the French wine industry and how there's like literal terrorism that goes on. Next one's Troubled Water. It's all about the bottled water industry and how especially Nestle kind of exploits different places. A Sweet Deal is all about the sugar industry, and sugarcane especially has been one of the most exploitative industries really almost in the history of mankind. And shortly followed by chocolate, which is the next episode. The cacao beans and everything. And the last one is High on Edibles. It talks about edible marijuana and CBD gummies and all kinds of edible things and how uh, in the early stages of legalization, how some of this is going stupid. But yeah, they're very similar. And Broken is another one that goes through different industries, and it's again, it's very much a lot on the same lines as the other two series. You see how things are broken, they're corrupt, how crime is involved. It's just ridiculous to see how some of these industries that you would never think have those kinds of ties. It's interesting. So, one of my keys here is my number 9 is Meltdown, which if you haven't seen it, is the story of 3 Mile Island, the meltdown and the entire rigmarole and aftermath, going years later, years into the 80s, how things got screwed up, how much radiation was released, how many different corporations were just corrupt and horrible.
It is interesting. I know a lot more about Chernobyl than I do 3 Mile Island.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I did too going into this, before I actually watched this series. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is there are a lot of people that are, there's a lot of people in this series that were there. So we're getting firsthand, accounts from people. And there's also plenty of news footage that they're pulling out, that they pulled out. And it's infuriating, basically, because I'm a big proponent of nuclear energy. I think that's the only technology that we have right now that can actually get us out of this fossil fuel issue crisis. I know that there are, and basically it was this accident, which wasn't really an accident. It was negligence and corner cutting and not living up to the regulations that caused this accident. And that's why it's so infuriating to me, not only because I only live 55 miles away from the site, but because this is the incident that killed the nuclear energy industry in the United States. And I think it was horribly tragic, and again, it's completely infuriating. And by the time I was done with this show, I was so disgusted and so angry at all of these people that let all of this crap happen. The corner cutting and things that they weren't doing right, despite engineers and people telling them differently. It's just terrible. That and there were some people that went to jail, but the problem is you can't put a corporation in jail, right? And so this is actually the series, and I was telling Johnny about this earlier. This series is what made me come up with the corporate death penalty plank for the Pennsylvania Pirate Party. That these corporations, and it was like 3 or 4 of them. I think it was at least 3, if not 4, that were prominent in this whole everything going down over the 5 or 6 years that the whole mess went down. They all should have been dissolved, and they all should have been gone, just gone. They showed that they had no care for anybody, and it was either just keeping themselves out of trouble or their bottom line, their bottom dollar, and that's just not acceptable to me. So this one is like, this is absolutely infuriating. If you haven't seen it yet, take the time, watch it. It's not a fast moving documentary, but it is absolutely infuriating. On a lighter note, and to finish out my list here is Don't Look Up, which is the movie that came out earlier this year. It's about the comet. I think it's a comet that's coming, and how it's basically a satire of the COVID-19 pandemic.
And climate change and a whole bunch of other stuff.
And climate change and a whole bunch, where basically people are ignoring the science, and then it just gets into a whole battle again of the deniers versus the acolytes, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I thought it was good satire, and if you're into that sort of thing, check that out. So, what did I miss? I guess is the question.
Well,
is there anything that
I should have come prepared? Well, I talked about that one documentary. I've been trying to find it over here while I've been here, and I can't seem to find it. If I do find it, though, I will send a link to Drew, and maybe he will put it on the list.
Yeah, I will add anything we were talking about to the list once I find it. And find
my problem here is I'm not really a documentary guy.
I gotcha.
I get all my information from a world of allegories, usually involving lasers and spaceships. So,
so you're into nuclear fusion then?
Oh yes, quite much. Yes.
There's some good documentaries I watched about that too recently. The different tokamaks that are being built, which they're promising, but so has a lot of the different technologies that have promised fusion over the decades.
Well, what's infuriating about it is that there's a safe way of doing fission right now. We could be doing fission.
Oh yeah.
We could be doing fission right now and waiting for fusion, but we're not doing either. And
I know.
It's
Well, here's the other interesting thing that I was reading about and saw a little bit of a YouTube video on was the atomic batteries that are coming. That they basically create their own electricity by the radioactive decay of the they grind up spent fuel rods. Or not the spent fuel rods, the carbon that is used in the used carbon.
okay.
They grind it up, and it's radioactive carbon-14 that is ground up and then decays. And then when the certain particles hit the other whatever other part of the battery there is, it
releases electrons.
It releases electrons.
Neat.
And so they say that these batteries could last up to like 20,000 years before the carbon-14 is done decaying. So
what's that? Is that a team of wet work people sent by Energizer to shut down all research into this?
Yeah, like seriously, it could be the ultimate. It could be the ultimate battery for everything, right? Like, I mean, this is how you can make an Iron Man suit. Like theoretically, I mean, I think the issue with it right now is that the energy density is not super high. So like the battery weight would be very large with the current technology versus the amount of, power that you get out of it. But they're actively developing it. Like, I think it has to do with some kind of, it also has to do, it's diamonds.
Okay.
Diamonds basically ring when these atomic particles hit them, and you get electricity out of these diamonds. I mean, I don't know. Obviously we know how to make diamond now and everything, and it's like a carbon battery, but it's a radioactive carbon battery.
Yeah. I'm just imagining telling someone like 60 years ago, oh yeah, we use batteries made of radiation and diamond to power everything nowadays. That's how you describe the future right there. That's how you sell it.
Diamonds and radioactive waste from power plants. Like, so, I mean, the big thing is that one of the things is obviously they're trying to build a technology that doesn't require all the lithium. and because lithium is a very toxic chemical, and it's not all that prevalent in the Earth's crust.
And where it is prevalent isn't great for us. So
right. So, and then the other side of it is that it can utilize nuclear waste and help with that problem. And it's like, this sounds like a really good, promising technology. Let's make these things. And let's build a few more nuke plants, because for crying out loud, we need the electricity.
Yes.
So yeah. So that's the thing with that. That's the cool thing with that. Maybe let's see if I can find that on YouTube and share it.
Now, sitting here, I did think of something else we could add to the list.
All right.
This is something that is on Netflix. It's not a Netflix original, but it is on Netflix. I'm assuming that's probably the easiest way to access it. And it is